and welcome to our virtual Veterans Day ceremony, broadcast live from the American Legion Post 70, Asheville, North Carolina. Thank you, Post 70, for hosting us. We're truly honored to have you with us this Veterans Day. My name is Alan Percal. I am the chair of Buncombe County Veterans Council, one of the sponsors of today's ceremony. Also contributing sponsors are the City of Asheville and its Veterans Affairs Committee, Buncombe County, and Charles George VA. Today's ceremony is about honoring the service of every veteran who has served their country in war or peacetime. Thank you for your sacrifices to keep our freedom. Please remember, freedom is not free. On the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, when the guns fell silent, we will always remember. The national anthem will be sung by Rick Ledford, United States Marine Corps, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Ralph Brown, United States Army, Vietnam.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I would like to welcome the Honorable Esther Mannheimer, Mayor of the City of Asheville, followed by Al Whitesides, Buncombe County Commissioner, Vice Chair, United States Navy, Vietnam, for some introductory remarks.
Good morning. On behalf of the City of Asheville and the Asheville City Council, I'd like to welcome you to this Veterans Day ceremony. I'd like to thank Alan Perkal, as well as members of the Buncombe County Veterans Council and the Mayor's Committee for Veterans Affairs for planning today's event and inviting me to speak. A special thank you to Rick Ledford and Ralph Brown for leading our national anthem and Pledge of Allegiance. I would like to welcome our United States military veterans and those on active duty, as well as their families and loved ones who are here with us today and watching from home. I'm honored to be here among so many of you who have served our country. We are here today to honor the veterans in our community and across the United States for their service and sacrifice to our country. We also thank and honor those who gave their lives protecting the freedoms we hold so dear. Before I turn it over to Vice Chairman Whitesides, I'd like to recognize Stephanie Young and Laura Tugman and the incredible work they do at the Charles George VA Center. The VA is a vital asset to the veterans in our community. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank Dr. Tugman for her service. In addition, I'd like to thank the brothers and sisters like these for sharing their stories with us today. I have now had the opportunity to hear their stories on several occasions, and I find them to be moving and insightful, allowing us non-veterans to better understand the experience of those who have served our country in the military. In 2007, the Mayor's Committee for Veterans Affairs was created to increase awareness and community resources available to active duty and retired service members and military veterans. The City of Asheville remains committed to honoring and supporting veterans in our community and across the country. Thank you to the men and women who have made the supreme sacrifice protecting our nation and the privileges of freedom. You are all heroes among us. Thank you for your service.
Good morning. On behalf of the 270,000 citizens of Buncombe County, the Buncombe County Commission, and the county employees, I'd like to say thank you for letting us participate this morning in the Veterans Day celebration. And I'd like to thank all of you who put this on, because as a Vietnam veteran, this is something I see that sometimes veterans are forgotten, and we need to always remember those who keep us safe and who's made America the strongest country it is today on earth. For me, it's especially gratifying to come and to be a part of this, because I am a Vietnam veteran, and I'm proud to say that my family has been represented, that I know of, in every war since the Spanish-American War, including Iraq I, II, and Afghanistan. And thank the Lord, we didn't lose any members of our family during those conflicts. But to all the veterans, to the families, and to those who are on active duty today, all I can say is thank you for keeping us safe. And what I will do here today is salute all of you for what you've done and what you will continue to do. And may God continue to bless the great United States of America. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Vice Chair Whiteside. Our first presenter will be Stephanie Young, Director, Charles George VA Medical Center, Asheville, North Carolina, the best VA in the country. We, the veterans of Western North Carolina, are truly blessed to have Charles George Medical Center as our health care provider.
Good morning, and thank you for providing me the opportunity to speak at this year's Veterans Day ceremony. It's an honor and a privilege to join the community in paying tribute to our nation's heroes. Heroes like Army Private First Class Charles George, the namesake of our facility in Asheville, the Charles George VA Medical Center. Private First Class George was fatally wounded during the Korean War when he threw himself on a grenade to protect his fellow soldiers. For his action, he was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor. We honor him and all service members every day. We honor them with our dedication and our desire to serve those who have served our great nation. As we know, today is a special day for all Americans. For those of us at the Western North Carolina VA healthcare system who have taken up President Lincoln's charge to care for veterans, it has an added special meaning. That's for all of us throughout the VA. and for Western North Carolina, not just here at the main facility, but also for those at our clinics in Franklin, Hickory, and Rutherford County. Our healthcare system's work has significance in that it connects us to veterans. In much the same way that the men and women have put on a uniform and sworn an oath to defend our country, we too have sworn a solemn oath to care for those who have served. It is the VA's sole purpose for existence to care and serve our veterans. Our job is to help them live their best lives, to support them while they heal, to ease their burdens when they can't heal, and lend a listening ear or a helpful hand. We know that the best way to care for our veterans is to give them a reason to trust us, because it's in that trust that they provide us an avenue for treatment. And it's in that trust that gives them the faith to work with us, to help them live their best lives. Fortunately, not every veteran had to face combat. Even so, most consider their time in service a very defining time in their life. That's because the military tends to bring out the best in people. It enhances what's already there: honor, duty, and patriotism. It doesn't matter which branch they served in. They may joke with each other about different services. They may kid around, but do not be mistaken. It is a privilege reserved just for them. There's a bond that joins every veteran from every branch of every service. Each raised their right hand and swore that they stood ready to fight, and if called for, die for their country. We at the VA honor all veterans. We pay tribute to their strength of character and irrefutable loyalty every single day. It is our calling to heed, and one that we perform to the best of our abilities. We serve them out of respect for their service that they provided to our great nation. Just as they have memories of their family and friends, of days and places from the past, we have memories of them. Sometimes they share stories with us, sometimes when they receive services and care, and then quietly go about their way. Someone once told me that the two most important things a person can have are purpose and connection with others. Well, I am very glad that we have an overabundance of both at the Western VA, North Carolina healthcare system, and I'm both proud and humbled by that. So today, as every day, we celebrate, we thank our veterans, we strive to understand their challenges, we honor their sacrifices, and we celebrate their overwhelming successes. We're grateful for all they have done, and we're honored to be here and support and care for them. We're also very thankful for a very, very supportive community. Veterans, on behalf of our VA team, we thank you for your service to our great country, and we thank you for trusting us with your care. Wishing you and yours a very happy Veterans Day.
Thank you, Director Young, for your leadership at Charles George VA. Our keynote speaker today is Dr. Laura Tugman, Chief of Mental Health Services, Charles George VA Medical Center. Dr. Tugman is an Army veteran, enlisted from 1991 to 1995, where she served as a psychiatric specialist. Her experiences and training in the Army became the catalyst for her life's work to serve fellow veterans struggling with mental health issues. Dr. Tugman has served at Charles George VA Medical Center since 2013. It is our honor to introduce the caretaker of 12,000 veterans receiving mental health care at Charles George, Dr. Laura Tugman.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the Buncombe County Vets Council for asking me to speak here today. It's truly an honor to be here, and I'm humbled that I get to be a representative for women veterans. I want to share with you my journey as a soldier in the United States Army, as a military family member, and then as a veteran who now cares for my fellow veterans. As I reflect back on my experiences from being a soldier to serving veterans in the VA, the common thread through it all is family, not just biological family, but my veteran family. I grew up in a large family where most of the men in the family served in the military at some point in their lives. And my most vivid memory of this was one of my uncles who served in Vietnam several years before I was born. His Army Class A uniform was always hanging in the closet at my grandmother's house, and even as a young child, I knew that that uniform was special. We would open the door and look at it sometimes. Years later, that same uncle would become one of my biggest supporters when I became the first woman in my family to join the Army. As I considered careers in the Army, I made multiple trips to the MEP station with the recruiter to consider possible jobs. It was a hard decision. The last day I went to the MEP station, I was given 3 options for an MOS or military occupational specialty. So that day I was offered to be a truck driver, a meat inspector, or a psychiatric specialist. And I immediately knew that psychiatric specialist was the right job for me. It was one of the best decisions I've made in my life. The job description included working in Army hospitals, providing care for soldiers in psychiatric units, taking care of them after combat. After so many attempts to find the right MOS for me, my recruiters were incredibly happy that I had finally chosen a job and took the oath to join the Army. The training, experience, and skills I gained in those years in the Army have carried me through my life and my career. As I reflect back on my time in the military, I view it not only as a wonderful time in my life, but a turning point for me that set the course for the rest of my life's work. My experience in the Army revealed that path, and I don't know that I would have found it otherwise. And for that, I will be forever grateful to the United States Army for this significant contribution to my life. Being a soldier taught me a whole new way of being a female in the world. As a soldier, I was expected to carry my weight and handle my problems without special consideration. Being part of a unit, I learned how to function at a higher level than just my own self, but to be vigilant for the good of my comrades, which is an important lesson for any young person to learn in order to be successful in life. I gained a high level of self-confidence and independence that shaped my life. My brother was also in the military. He joined the Marines right out of high school, and he was actually the one who inspired me to join the Army. Serving in the military was challenging, fun, and exciting for us. We both loved it, and we were competitive with each other in tasks like marksmanship and physical fitness, and a lot of good-natured ribbing that Ms. Young just referred to between services. He jokingly teased me about being a medic while he was in the more hardcore Marines. We were traveling the world at that time. We had financial independence and responsibilities that were well beyond our years, as all young people in the military do. After we completed our first enlistments, I got out of the Army to go to college, and my brother enrolled in the Army's Green to Gold program so he could complete his college degree and return to the Army as an officer. We went forward with the business of building our lives, getting married, and my brother having 2 wonderful children. As a young person trying to make my way in life, I had an awareness that the oath I took to defend my country and the Constitution was solemn. But it was only after 9/11 that I truly came to understand the gravity and sacrifice that comes with military service. Like most of us who are alive on 9/11, I remember exactly where I was when I saw the planes hit the World Trade Center. It was devastating and scary. My brother was now an infantry officer in the Army, and it only took a few moments for the dread and fear to set in. I didn't know where, when, or how, but I knew that my brother was going to go to combat. Over the next 11 years, I began to understand the other side of military service, as I was now a family member at home, worrying about the safety of my brother as he served multiple deployments in Iraq and Afghanistan. As so many military families know, the waiting and worrying on a loved one to return from a deployment can be crushing. Our family came together to support my brother's wife and children during the years that he was gone. The absences and returns of a parent, coupled with frequent moves required by the military, shape entire childhoods for children of military members. I saw firsthand how my niece and nephew were forced to adjust to their dad being gone and then readjust when he returned. Strength comes through struggle, and I can say that my niece and nephew are two very strong and resilient young adults because of their experiences growing up as military kids. And I want to emphasize that their experiences are not unique. So many children grow up in military families, and their sacrifices to our country at such a young age are invisible to most, but the sacrifice is significant. Now my nephew, who was just a baby when 9/11 happened, has carried on our family tradition and is serving in the Air Force. I'm just so proud of him. During my brother's first deployment to Iraq, he wrote a letter explaining that he had seen firsthand how important and valuable women soldiers were in a combat zone, and how grateful he had been for the medics on numerous occasions. After all the ribbing for those years, it made me proud to be a woman veteran, and it inspired me to find a way to support not just my family, but my country during the 2 wars we were fighting. Through those years, I was acutely aware of the sacrifice made by so many members of our military and their families. Some gave their lives in those wars, and others sustained injuries, both visible and invisible. And that changed their lives forever and the lives of their families forever. I felt so strongly that I had to do something to help my fellow veterans. I'd received so much from my time in the military, and I had to find a way to give back. I began to look at VA as a place where I could contribute the skills that I had and combine that with my calling to care for veterans. I completed a master's degree in counseling at that point, but VA didn't hire counselors at that time. They hired psychologists. I made the decision I would return to school and obtain a doctorate in psychology with the goal of obtaining a job in the VA to care for veterans. It was a long and difficult journey to finish the requirements to be a psychologist, but I kept my sights on a job with VA so that I could help care for veterans. I'm immensely grateful now for every day that I get to serve veterans at Charles George VA. I learned in the military that our comrades get us through hardship. Sometimes that comes through support, sometimes through laughter, sometimes through setting each other straight. My goal for our mental health service at Charles George VA has been to create a recovery community free of stigma, where veterans can reach out for help and find support, not only of trained professionals, but support of their peers and fellow comrades. My hope and my goal is that every veteran who reaches out for help will feel supported and cared for in a way that honors their sacrifice and service to our nation. As I reflect back to that young woman who enlisted in the Army, I had no idea where the journey would lead, that the day I chose to be a psychiatric specialist would set the path for my life's work up to this day. But I am profoundly grateful to be a veteran and to have served this wonderful country. My joy every day is to be in a role where I can serve veterans and their families. To all my fellow veterans, my veteran family, I know that this day is bittersweet as we think of sacrifices made by so many of us. But I hope that you also take a moment to reflect on your service, to remember the laughs you shared with your comrades and your buddies, the wild and high-speed experiences that only members of the military ever get to experience, and view your contributions to our military and our nation with pride. This phrase is sometimes used too often, but with my sincerest heart, I say today to all veterans, thank you for your service.
Thank you, Dr. Tugman, for your inspiring speech and what your staff does for us at Charles George. There will be 3 readings from the Brothers and Sisters Like These Veteran Writing Group. Kevin Rumley, Program Director at the Veterans Treatment Court in Buncombe County, United States Marine Corps. Happy belated birthday, Marines. Iraq, Purple Heart. Jim Hernandez, United States Air Force, Vietnam. And Steve Henderson, United States Marine Corps, Vietnam. This group does public readings and conducts writing workshops, helping veterans in their journey to heal the wounds of war.
Good morning, and thank you for this opportunity to say a few words. My name is Kevin Rumley, and I serve as the Program Director for the Buncombe County Veterans Treatment Court, a non-punitive alternative to incarceration for justice-involved veterans. Veterans Day is an important day that we set aside each year to honor and thank all veterans who served, living or deceased. But particularly, we honor the living veterans among us. Veterans Day is an important holiday to me. I believe it's essential to recognize all those who served, all of those who raised their hand and gave an oath to their country, offering to their government of the United States of America their services, their skills, their dedication, their blood, sweat, and tears, and yes, if it was asked, their lives. Service in the armed forces is, I believe, truly one of the highest callings. There are many reasons that someone joins the service, but a common uniting force is the desire for a greater purpose. This is the desire to be part of something greater than ourselves. This was one of the motivating factors that led me to enlist in the Marine Corps in 2003. You see, my generation, we were raised with the backdrop of 9/11 and the deadliest terror attacks on American soil in September of 2001. My generation responded to those feelings of hopelessness, anger, and rage after seeing the World Trade Centers fall. My generation was willing to go anywhere and do anything to support the global war against terrorism. For many from my generation, that's exactly what we received. I was sent to the Syrian border in 2003 with 37 Lima Company. This was a neglected outpost in western Iraq where the Euphrates came down. We were tasked with training their security forces, providing stability to the community, and ensuring no weapons were being funneled across the border. Oh, and we were tasked with winning the hearts and minds of the locals. That was our mandate. Only, I didn't learn these skills at Parris Island Marine Corps Boot Camp in South Carolina. Sure, I learned how to kill. I learned how to destroy. I learned how to neutralize the enemy. I became skilled in the art of violence. But winning hearts and minds, that was not a skill that I possessed at age 18. In this tiny town of Huseba, we created our own community. 100 Marines, a force recon, sniper attachment, and an infantry unit. So the boots, as we were called, these were all the Marines that had served under a year. That's what I was. We had to rotate on latrine duty. 24/7, the excrement from the Marines had to be burned and stirred. Burned and stirred. Now, this was not the glamorous lifestyle that my Marine recruiter had promised me. After a 2-hour shift, a Marine could anticipate having their desert camis jungle brown. But even in these strange times, we found time to laugh and to connect, to bond, and to share stories from home, one Marine to another. We became a tribe, a family. But with any war, destruction soon follows. my unit lost 26 Marines to improvised explosive devices and sniper fire. It was an unsettling affair. We would be on patrol for 14 hours, circling this tiny town of Huseba. An explosion would go off, and we could feel the earth shake. We would wait to see what type of helicopter was flying in. That way we knew if the Marines were dead or if just injured. I remember, to honor those Marines that were killed, we would stop our patrols and spend just 15 minutes holding a makeshift service for the fallen Marine heroes inside the shack of an abandoned tire warehouse. We would gather, each having the opportunity to walk by the fallen Marines' boots, dog tags, and rifles. Each Marine would offer their final farewell in silence, but there was no time to mourn. And never were we thinking, I could be next, or that could be me. Those thoughts could not enter into our mind. We couldn't allow it. We had to keep going forward. I remember when it was my time to walk by this makeshift memorial, touching the helmets and saying a prayer for the families back home who did not yet know that they had lost a loved one. Thoughts always wandered to others, people and families. A home far away. My generation was far from home, and yet, because of the advances in military equipment and medical care, home was actually a lot closer than we could imagine. I would learn this firsthand in April of 2004. I was on a foot patrol, walking along on this beautiful sunny day, when unexpectedly an improvised explosive device detonated. It tore through my best friend Chris Wasser. The remaining shrapnel from the bomb tore through my legs, my arms, my fingers, bicep, and eye. I fell to the ground. A sense of terror and drowning overcame me. Suddenly, a corpsman rushed up and shot me up with morphine. In this state of shock and confusion, I was carried away, put on a helicopter and flown far from the battlefield. Within a single day, I was medevaced to Germany, stabilized. That was followed by an overnight flight to Walter Reed Medical Hospital, where I would undergo 32 surgeries in a year and a half of rehabilitation. Now, my story is not unique. For my generation, many came home injured. Some never came home, like my friend Chris Wasser and 25 other Marines. But for even more service members, they came home with the invisible wounds of war. Wounds that would not manifest themselves for many years to come. I struggled to find stability and stable footing. I had my entire reality ripped out from underneath me. Separated from my tribe and completely alone, I turned to opioids to manage the pain, both physical and emotional. But fortunately, I had an amazing family and support system that never gave up on me. Eventually, I was able to begin the healing process, not just from the physical wounds, but from my PTSD, my anxiety, and loss. And so I stand here today, whole and happy, and able to honor my generation, the generation that raised their hand and offered their lives. And I'm here today to give voice to my generation, those who still struggle with the actions of their service. You see, my generation continues to fight, continues the battle, but today it's a different battle, the invisible war within. But I am honored on this special day to say thank you to all those who served. Happy Veterans Day 2021.
Before I begin my reading this morning, I'd just like to thank you for the opportunity to publicly acknowledge the sacrifice of a good friend of mine. Today, if you were driving north on Massachusetts State Road 1A from Hamilton to Beverly, you would pass through an even smaller town named Wenham. You probably would pay little attention to this small residential community as you went along Main Street heading toward your destination. Just a short distance from downtown Wenham is a public park called Pingree Park, and in it is a Little League baseball field. In 1972, the citizens of that community dedicated the field to a native son who, like tens of thousands of others, made the ultimate sacrifice in military service for their country during the Vietnam War. He was the town's only casualty to die during that conflict. At the baseball field, sitting at the base of the flagpole, is placed a large stone supporting a plaque which designates it as Cheeseman Field and reads, "Dedicated 1972 in memory of Captain Allen B. Cheeseman, Southeast Asia, 1970. In 1962, Al graduated from Beverly High School in the town next to Wenham, where he was a National Merit Scholarship finalist, placing him in the top 0.5% of the high school seniors in his state. Al was a member of high school clubs for students who loved to exercise their brains, math, physics projects, slide rule, and chess. Also, he was a manager for the track and cross-country teams. At the end of his junior year, Al was awarded the prestigious Rensselaer Medal, given to recognize superlative academic achievement in math and science. The Merit Scholarship, with a value of $25,000 a year, was guaranteed for 4 years for each medalist who was accepted and enrolled at Rensselaer. Overall, a student would be eligible to receive a scholarship valued up to $100,000. And if that wasn't enough achievement, he was also an Eagle Scout. Al's graduation yearbook inscription was "Knowledge is Power." Near completion of high school, Al decided to decline the Rensselaer Scholarship and instead to compete for an appointment to the United States Air Force Academy. He was accepted by the Academy into the class of 1966 and began his cadet college career in the summer of 1962. I had also received an appointment that year, and it was during basic cadet training that summer when I met Al for the first time. Having survived those 6 weeks of intense military orientation from the upperclassmen, we both were assigned to our permanent cadet squadron for the next 4 years, the 22nd. During that time, I was fortunate to twice have Al as my roommate, and we became good friends. He, the scientific type from Massachusetts, and me, the liberal arts guy from Alabama. Al, the cheeser, was a highly respected member of the 22nd. My squadron classmates and I remember his calm demeanor, ready smile, and always positive attitude. Al devoted himself to his studies, and his diligence resulted in him being frequently named to the dean's academic list. He spent most of his afternoons and weekends serving as manager for the Academy's cross-country and track teams. In his graduation yearbook entry, Al stated he was looking forward to a 30-year career in the Air Force. Al's strong academic performance at the Academy resulted in his selection for a coveted first assignment to graduate school. In just 7 months, Al completed a Master of Science degrees in Applied Mathematics while attending North Carolina State University. And though academics were always a love and a focus for Al, at North Carolina State, he happily shifted his focus and attention after he met, fell in love with, and soon married a very intelligent and lovely young woman named Beverly. Shortly thereafter, they were assigned to Moody Air Force Base, Georgia, where Al began his year-long undergraduate pilot training class, just as I was close to earning my wings in the senior class at the same base. During that reunion, I met his terrific wife, Beverly. A few months later, I was on my way to Vietnam to serve my year of combat duty. Al successfully completed pilot training in April 1968, and following transitions to helicopters in August 1969, he reported for combat duty with the 21st Special Operations Squadron, the Dust Devils, at Nakhon Phanom Royal Thai Air Force Base, Thailand. Al flew missions in the CH-3, affectionately nicknamed a Jolly Green because of its size and color, and later was selected to serve as an instructor, indicating the great trust and confidence his supervisors placed in his judgment and skill. During his combat tour, Al's unit participated in the very hazardous, top-secret Operation Prairie Fire missions, inserting and extracting six-man Special Operation Reconnaissance teams into enemy-held territory along the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Teams were inserted into small remote landing zones where high operating altitudes and temperatures often push the helicopters to the very limits of their capability. In addition, most often the reconnaissance team extractions were emergency extractions, with teams under fire from North Vietnamese Army forces. During emergency extractions, with the reconnaissance team receiving enemy fire, it was often impossible for them to get to a clear area for pickup. This required the air crews to use the CH-3 jungle penetrator to extract the reconnaissance team, increasing the time they were exposed to enemy fire. This procedure required the helicopter to hover just above the treetops and lower a cable with a seat attached to the end upon which team members sat as they were hoisted up into the aircraft. Due to the incredible danger and aviator skill associated with these missions, the pilots and crew members of the 21st Special Operations Squadron were highly decorated for their heroism in this very intense and difficult combat environment. The Distinguished Flying Cross is awarded to any persons who distinguish themselves by single acts of heroism or extraordinary achievement while participating in aerial flight. Al was the recipient of 5 Distinguished Flying Crosses, 6 Air Medals, and the Purple Heart for his combat missions flown in Southeast Asia. On August 13, 1970, while flying on a training mission to Yuban, Thailand, 2 weeks before Al was to have completed his combat tour and returned to Beverly and their young daughter, his CH-3 was hit by insurgent enemy ground fire that knocked out both engines. The helicopter rapidly descended while on fire and crashed. Al and the other crew members were killed instantly upon contact with the ground. At the Air Force Academy, each graduating class holds reunions every 5 to 10 years, and many activities are held during these get-togethers, including a memorial service in the Academy Chapel to remember and honor those classmates who are no longer with us. The following call and response ritual is held at each service. A classmate reads out the names of our deceased classmates, and after each name is read, a volunteer classmate rises from a church pew and provides a standard response that can be heard by everyone. During the class of '66 50th year reunion, as Al's name was read, I stood up at attention and in the clearest voice I could manage, responded, "Not present, sir."
Good morning. My name is Steve Henderson. Today is a real honor for me to read the piece I'm getting ready to read. I'm president of the North Carolina Veterans Writing Alliance Foundation and a proud member of Brothers and Sisters Like These. Today I read a story written by a brother, and it's a unbelievable story. David Rathworth was probably one of the neatest Marines I've ever met. He was a good husband, And today I read this to honor him. And our guest of honor today is Jen Rafoth, his wife, which he loved dearly. These folks had done so much for the veterans group that I belong to. Brothers and sisters like these. Today I read the story by David, The Wire. He opened the box to look at it. Maybe 100 times he did this over the years. Always alone, a quiet time. There it was, as always, sitting on top, as if it was waiting for him. The box held other things as well. Trinkets, newspaper clippings, a letter from his long-dead grandmother. The big things were framed, hung, displayed. Not this. He stared at it before he touched it. Slowly he picked it up and turned it in his hands. It still frightened him, sometimes more than others. He didn't know why. It confused him to think no one knew what it was. He knew and remembered. He pulled on it to straighten it, the way it was when he first came into his life. But it wiggled and curled back on itself, like it had its own life now. The small wooden box once held cigars. Now, like a vault, it kept long ago memories, like the terrifying one when he and this sinister black thing first met. Of course, it was over 50 years ago, but still as clear as ever. It would be like that until one of them died. He physically it thrown out, no longer having any power. He held it close to his eyes, examining it. A fine gauge copper wire coated with flexible insulation. On one of a larger copper wire, once coiled tight, now pulled straight. One piece ours, one piece theirs. Who was it that made this whole thing? Who put it where it was sure to be found? He found it that night long ago in the war. Simple construction with deadly consequences. He put it back in the box, closed the lid, but not on his memory this time, walking point in a slow drizzle, moving too fast, trying to make set up before dawn. Right leg stepping into a hole that shouldn't be there. Something was wrong. He didn't move. Behind him came the patrol leader. He warned him not to move and said he was moving the others in the team back. There was no doubt now. He knew what it was. Through the cold rain, he could feel the sweat under his armpits. His sphincter muscle tightened. Nothing happened. He stayed frozen, trying not to breathe too hard, waiting. The sergeant came back. He slowly reached into the hole, feeling his leg. You're on a booby trap. The trip wire is tight, and it's still attached. I'm taking your pack and rifle. He was scared. Now what? He resisted, feeling for the wire himself. What if he moved to take the tension off? Use your leg to spring out. Curl up and roll down the slope, the sergeant said. I'm moving back a ways. He set his mind right, got ready, then got ready again. Would he lose a foot, a leg, or everything? A chicken shit way to end it. His anger vented on the bastard that put him here. The wire came out of the box one more time. Again, he stared at it, remembering he did the roll. Nothing happened. They moved on silently with a new point man. 2 days later, they came back and found it. Our 105 round rigged with their blasting cap, a trigger tied with our comm wire as a tripwire. Why it didn't blow, he didn't know. He reached in and put the wire and stuffed it in his pack. Someone else blew the round. He looked at the hole where he could have been and turned away. He placed the wire back in the box on the top and closed the lid again. For now, his memory in there with it. Until next time. Rest in peace, David, until we see again. Semper Fidelis.
Thank you, Kevin, Jim, and Steve, for those powerful stories of those who serve our country in Vietnam and Iraq. And in our hearts, the memory of Al Cheeseman and David Rayforth. Thank you for attending our ceremony today. Hopefully, we can meet in person next Veterans Day at the Charles George VA Medical Center. Stay well and be safe. Thank you.